I always thought I knew what success meant. Ever since I was a kid, I believed that life's ultimate goal was to build something, to achieve, to win, to be the man others looked up to. My father drilled it into me. Love is a luxury. Respect is earned through hard work. I carried that belief like armor, convinced that chasing my dreams would lead to a perfect life. I dreamed of being a self-made man, respected, powerful. I wanted the house, the car, the recognition. But in that vision, love was just an accessory, nice to have, but not essential. I feared failure more than anything. Not just losing my job or missing a promotion, but the idea of looking back at my life and realizing I'd settled. Love? It seemed like a distraction, a weakness. Something that could hold me back from reaching my potential, and so, I built walls. I made sacrifices. I convinced myself that Natalie, the woman I loved, would understand. We'll have time later, I told myself. Once I've made it. But deep down, there was a quiet voice. A suspicion I refused to acknowledge. What if I was wrong? What if, in my quest to build an empire, I was losing something far more valuable? I didn't know it yet, but that belief bubble I lived in was about to burst. It wasn't easy to make the decision to end things with Natalie. I remember that night clearly. We sat at the dinner table, a few dim lights casting shadows over our plates. The conversation felt off from the start, like both of us were holding our breath, waiting for the inevitable to happen. I just don't see how we're going to make this work anymore, Michael, she said softly. The words stung, but they weren't entirely unexpected. The space between us had grown for months, maybe even years. She was frustrated, and I was too busy to see it. I was chasing success, and she was chasing, well, something I couldn't give her anymore. I told myself it was for the best, that the break would give us both the time to breathe. I had to focus on my career. I wasn't just thinking about the paycheck. This was about building something that would last, something meaningful. I had big plans, starting my own business, creating a legacy. Natalie understood that, right? She always said she did. She'd been supportive, but I was starting to see that her patience was running out. Still, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the choice. Breaking up with her felt like pulling the rug out from under everything I thought I'd built. The life we dreamed of seemed so far away. I couldn't make her a priority, not now. Not when everything I worked for was just within reach. But deep down, I feared that this decision would change everything. I think we need space, I said, trying to sound confident, even though my heart wasn't in it. She nodded, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She didn't say it outright, but I could feel it in her silence. You're choosing success over me. And in that moment I couldn't argue with her. It felt like a clean break, a way to clear the air. But as I walked out of that house, into the silence of my car, I knew I wasn't just walking away from her. I was walking away from everything I thought mattered. A few months went by after the breakup. On the surface, everything seemed fine. I was climbing the ladder. My business was growing, and my financial success was starting to match the vision I'd worked so hard for. People were starting to notice. I was becoming the man I always thought I was supposed to be, the kind of man who could have everything. But inside, something was off. It wasn't just the empty dinners or nights spent alone in a hotel room. It was the nagging feeling that no matter how many deals I closed, no matter how many awards I won, it wasn't enough. There was this hole in my chest, and nothing I did could fill it. Success was supposed to be the answer, wasn't it? It was supposed to bring happiness, fulfillment, and peace. But instead, it felt like a never-ending chase. Every victory was fleeting, and each new project brought more stress than satisfaction. The more I gained, the more I felt like I was losing. I'd call Natalie from time to time, but the calls were short, awkward. She had moved on in her own way, and I couldn't blame her. I was busy building this empire, but it came at the cost of everything I once held dear. And no matter how many meetings I had or how much I expanded the business, that gnawing emptiness didn't go away. It was around this time that I started to question everything. Was this what I really wanted? Was this success worth the loneliness? I had money, respect, and everything I thought I'd need, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost the most important thing of all: connection. It hit me like a ton of bricks one day when I was sitting alone at a new restaurant I had just bought for the business, yet another achievement to mark off the list. I stared at the glass of whiskey in front of me, wondering how I'd gotten here. How had I become this man, so focused on success that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just be? To live in the moment, to love and be loved. I thought I had everything I needed. But in truth, I had built a house without a foundation. And now, it was crumbling around me. It was a Thursday afternoon when I got the first letter. No return address. Just my name scribbled in a familiar handwriting. I felt an immediate lump in my throat as I turned it over, wondering who could possibly be sending me something out of the blue. Inside, there was no business proposal or client update. Instead, it was a single page filled with a personal joke that only Natalie and I used to laugh about. A memory from our first road trip together, something we had laughed off as silly but meaningful at the time. I read it over and over, the words seeming to echo in my mind. How could this be? It was something only she would write. But why the secrecy? Why the mystery? Over the next few weeks, more letters arrived, always handwritten, with no return address, each one more personal than the last. At first, I thought it might have been some sort of prank. Maybe someone was playing with my emotions. But as I read through each letter, it became clear to me, this wasn't a joke. This was real. The letters started to bring back memories of a time when we laughed together, dreamed together. They rekindled feelings I had buried deep beneath layers of work and ambition. My heart, which I'd hardened in the pursuit of success, began to stir again. But there was something else too, a sense of loss. I knew deep down that these letters weren't just a walk down memory lane. They were calling me back to something I had left behind. But why now? Why after all this time? And then, one day, the letter came with a different tone. This one had an address on it, a place I knew well. The familiar street where Natalie had lived before we broke up. The letter simply said, "I think it's time we talk. If you're ready, I'll be waiting." My heart skipped a beat. I knew I had to go, but as I stood up to leave, a strange feeling washed over me. Was I ready for this? What was I hoping to find? The man I had become was nothing like the one who left her. I wasn't sure what awaited me, but I couldn't ignore the pull. The journey I had been on was about to take a turn I never saw coming. I arrived at the address late in the afternoon, my nerves on edge. The same house where we once planned our future, where everything felt so certain. But now, it was just a place in the past, a relic of something I thought I'd lost. My mind raced with questions. What was this meeting really about? Was I chasing a ghost? Or was this my chance to fix the mistakes I'd made? As I knocked on the door, time seemed to stretch. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, the door creaked open, and there she stood. Natalie. She looked different, but in the same way people change over time. Her smile was a little softer, but her eyes, they were the same. It was like nothing had changed, yet everything had. "Michael," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her expression was hard to read, but I could see the vulnerability in her gaze. It took everything in me not to reach out and pull her into a hug, to erase the distance that had formed between us over the years. But I held back. I didn't know if I deserved that. She invited me inside, and we sat down across from each other. There was a long silence, one that seemed to hang between us like a fragile thread. I couldn't help but stare at her, at the woman I once loved, the woman I'd let go in the name of ambition. I could feel the weight of my regrets pressing down on me. How had I let it get to this point? Then she spoke. "I didn't write those letters to hurt you, Michael," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I did it because I wanted you to remember who you were. Who we were. I wanted you to see that love, real love, isn't something you just let go of when things get hard." Her words hit me like a wave. I'd spent so much time convincing myself that I was doing the right thing by focusing on my career, on building something that would last. But I hadn't seen the cost of that, how much I had lost in the process. Not just Natalie, but the person I was when I was with her. I never stopped loving you, Michael, she added quietly. I just needed you to understand that love doesn't wait around forever. You have to nurture it, fight for it. And that's when I understood. I wasn't just chasing success. I was running away from the one thing that truly mattered. Love. Genuine love. The kind of love that doesn't come with conditions, that doesn't fade when things get tough. It was the love I had with Natalie, and I had let it slip away because I thought success was all that mattered. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, I saw things clearly. This wasn't just about fixing a broken relationship. It was about choosing to live a life where love and ambition could coexist. Where balance was possible. Where I didn't have to choose between my dreams and my heart. I don't want to lose you again, I said, my voice thick with emotion. If you're willing to give me another chance, I promise I'll do better. She smiled, a small but meaningful smile, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Maybe this was my second chance. Maybe love wasn't something I had to chase. Maybe it was something I had to choose every single day. Her words hit me like a wave. I'd spent so much time convincing myself that I was doing the right thing by focusing on my career, on building something that would last. But I hadn't seen the cost of that, how much I had lost in the process. Not just Natalie, but the person I was when I was with her. I never stopped loving you, Michael, she added quietly. I just needed you to understand that love doesn't wait around forever. You have to nurture it, fight for it. And that's when I understood. I wasn't just chasing success. I was running away from the one thing that truly mattered. Love. Genuine love. The kind of love that doesn't come with conditions, that doesn't fade when things get tough. It was the love I had with Natalie, and I had let it slip away because I thought success was all that mattered. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, I saw things clearly. This wasn't just about fixing a broken relationship. It was about choosing to live a life where love and ambition could coexist. Where balance was possible. Where I didn't have to choose between my dreams and my heart. I don't want to lose you again, I said, my voice thick with emotion. If you're willing to give me another chance, I promise I'll do better. She smiled, a small but meaningful smile, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Maybe this was my second chance. Maybe love wasn't something I had to chase. Maybe it was something I had to choose every single day. After that conversation, everything changed. I'd come into that meeting with so many questions, unsure of what I wanted or if I even deserved a second chance. But leaving, I felt like a different person. Natalie's words had shattered the illusion that I'd built up around success. She had reminded me of something I had long forgotten, how much I needed love, how much I needed her. Over the next few weeks, we took things slow. We didn't rush into anything. It was a slow rebuilding process. We both had our walls up, our own scars from the past. But there was something new between us now, a shared understanding that love isn't just something that happens. It's something you build, something you nurture. We started with the small things. We went out for dinner at our old spots, reminiscing about the days when life seemed simpler. We took walks through the park, talking about everything and nothing. It felt so easy, so natural. Yet, there was a quiet undercurrent to it all. We were working towards something bigger than just rekindling old flames. We were learning to trust again. But even though things felt right between us, I couldn't help but wonder, was this really going to last? I was still carrying the weight of my past mistakes, wondering if I could ever be the partner she needed. And Natalie, I knew, had her own fears that I might slip back into old habits, back into the obsession with work that had pulled me away from her in the first place. But we were different now. We had learned the hard way that life wasn't just about getting ahead, about achieving some arbitrary measure of success. It was about the people you shared it with. About being present, about being there for each other when it mattered the most. So we decided to take a leap of faith. Not because it was easy, but because it felt right. We moved in together, no longer letting the uncertainties of the past dictate our future. There were still doubts, of course. We both had to face the truth of what we'd lost and what it would take to rebuild. But this time, we weren't afraid of the hard work. We were willing to put in the effort to make it work, no matter what. As we settled into our new life together, I realized something crucial: success without love was empty. But love without compromise wasn't the answer either. What we had now was a partnership. A partnership built on communication, understanding, and the willingness to change. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that was all I needed. We learned that true success wasn't measured by how much money I made or how many accolades I received. It was measured by the quality of the life we shared together. By the moments we created, the memories we built, and the love we nurtured every single day. We had been given a second chance, not just at our relationship, but at life itself. A chance to love better, to live more fully, and to remember that success means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. In the end, we realized the most valuable thing we could build wasn't a career, but a life of love, shared experiences, and growth together. As time passed, I started noticing the subtle shifts in both of us. We weren't just going through the motions anymore. We were choosing each other every day. I stopped measuring success in dollars or career achievements. Instead, I found myself valuing our quiet evenings, the simple joys that made life worth living. Natalie and I had both changed. She was no longer waiting for me to get my priorities straight. She had taken control of her own life too. She had grown stronger, more independent, and it was that strength that drew me to her even more. We began to plan for the future together, not in the way I'd imagined, with grand gestures and lofty goals, but in the way that made sense, as partners. We worked through the lingering doubts and fears, learning to embrace vulnerability instead of hiding from it. It wasn't always easy, but it was real. And real was all we needed. Trust had been the hardest thing to rebuild, but with each passing day, I felt more confident in what we had. It wasn't just about the words we said, it was about the actions we took. Natalie was there for me in ways I didn't deserve, showing me that love isn't just a feeling, it's a commitment. I learned to let go of my need for control, to stop measuring everything by success, and to simply be present. Natalie didn't ask for perfection. She asked for honesty, for effort, for the willingness to grow together. And that was something I could give. As we worked through our past mistakes, the foundation of trust we rebuilt grew stronger. There were no more secrets, no more walls. What we shared now was something that could withstand anything life threw at us. Our love wasn't perfect, but it was genuine. And that made all the difference.